Good evening and welcome to another edition of Tok Piksa. Tonight we visit the autonomous region of Bougainville. In recent times, the region has been given renewed attention by the government. It has renewed its commitment to ensure that Bougainville achieves its dream of one day becoming an independent nation. One of the most important parts of the peace agreement deals with referendum, something that will become the decider of Bougainville's future political status. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill says the national government has a major responsibility to rebuild Bougainville. Fabian Hakalitz gives a glimpse of the national government's intentions and the way forward to develop Bougainville.
Oh, Bougainville, my Bougainville, bless Bougainville.
Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has given reassurance of the national government's commitment to the peace process in Bougainville and a lasting peace on the island. In a report presented before Parliament, the Prime Minister said that the government is deeply committed to rebuild Bougainville from its crisis ashes. A special parliamentary committee to provide political oversight and leadership for referendum will be established.
A need for government to be involved more in Bougainville.
It was his first historical visit to the autonomous region of Bougainville as the country's chief executive after 15 years. This was after former Prime Minister, the late William Skate's visit for the ceasefire agreement in 1997. Monday, January 27, the moment everyone had waited for, the Prime Minister's goodwill visit. The delegation arrived on a chartered Air Niugini flight from Port Moresby that landed at Buka Airport. The Prime Minister was met by Bougainville President Chief Dr. John Momis and was given a rousing traditional welcome in the Bougainville way. And a guard of honor by the Bougainville Police Service. It was a privilege for the Prime Minister, an important marker in the peace and reconciliation process. Buka, Buin, Siwai, Kieta and Panguna, the home of the world's largest open cut mine. The Belisi Park in Buka town was packed as people flocked in to catch a glimpse of the Prime Minister.
Kami wave lo Yumi, lo 2011 kami become also Minister of Finance. Now I'm Mr. Yumi.
A traditional ritual was performed by the Motlok Islanders, signifying his status in the political arena.
Always responsive to whatever the situation in the future. Infrastructure in the north and Buka must be accelerated.
But first, Mr. O'Neill and Chief Momis reconciled, signified in the breaking of bow and arrow. The reconciliation was to end a disagreement over funding. Before delivering his goodwill speech, the Prime Minister shared his sympathies for all that happened during the crisis and families who lost their loved ones.
But it's also a time that I want to tell you that the government of Papua New Guinea and the people of Papua New Guinea have not forgotten Bougainville. Have not forgotten Bougainville.
The government's interest is to rebuild infrastructures like roads and bridges, funded under the annual 100 million kina high impact projects 2011 to 2016. Chief Momis said the Prime Minister's visit shows the national government's renewed commitment to promote peace, good governance and sustainable development. The peace agreement is a win-win solution and both governments will work together to ensure its clauses are fully implemented. Due to the special needs, the ABG has a very different funding arrangement to provincial governments.
Bougainville Peace Agreement ito, na Papua New Guinea Constitution ito, Bougainville is an autonomous region. And it cannot be treated like even the best run provincial government because the facts of the matter are different.
With the funding arrangements now fully understood, this extra funds would rebuild essential infrastructure and allow basic services delivery.
That we want to work together with all the leaders in ABG, leaders in parliament, and all the other community leaders in making a difference to our people's lives on the island of Bougainville.
The Peace Agreement Awareness Campaign, chaired by Chief Secretary Sir Manazupe Zurino, was launched. It paves way for more awareness to be conducted. The national government has renewed its commitment to support the autonomous Bougainville government on its pathway to referendum. And Prime Minister Peter O'Neill says the national government will continue to support the autonomous Bougainville government, preparing it for the outcome of the independence. South Bougainville was the next point of visit. Bui, known as a cowboy town, was packed to capacity, welcoming the first ever visit by a Prime Minister. Panguna is the home of the world's largest open cut mine that once produced billions of kina for Papua New Guinea's purse. All that could be seen now are the building's skeletal remains, like the cinema in the once mine township. A complete breakdown of government services was its effect. Panguna Mekamwi Defense Force Commander Moses Pipiro said the mine was closed because of issues fought between parties involved with landowners that gave birth to the Bougainville crisis. He said Panguna wants to be part of Bougainville's independence dream, and Mr. O'Neill's visit is significant. It will embrace a strong partnership and open opportunities between the national and the autonomous Bougainville governments.
I know like showing bad image yung ul napla or usat big man only camp or many old Bougainvillians.
It was the first ever visit by a Prime Minister to Panguna since after the crisis. His visit was welcomed. Moses recalled that Mr. O'Neill assured them in his first visit in the good days that one day if he became the Prime Minister, his priority would be to visit Panguna. The Prime Minister said the mine is a very contentious issue that caused a great deal of heartache, and Bougainvillians will make their own decision. Mr. O'Neill was deeply moved at the ceremony in Panguna with the family of the late Princess Ona and other leaders from the mine area.
Mistake. Every time you make counting mistake. I think every time you make Toto lo walking walk ko lo future. Well, beginning lo you can sit down good. Well, future lo all you can guarantee.
Mekamwe leader Philip Mirori pleaded for his people and said that the damage caused great sufferings and the national government must intervene to restore these services. The Mekamwis will work together to build a better Bougainville.
This commitment to our people and our future that stops us from repeating the mistakes of the past and ensure that our focus is entirely upon our future.
Panguna Landowners Association representative Lawrence Daviona said a restoration package is needed before the mine is to be reopened.
Bougainville Copper Agreement must be repealed before any talks of Panguna mine reopening can come up.
The national government has now prioritized its projects that will be rolled out this year: sealing of the Kokopau to Wind Road, Aropa Airport reopening, Boca Island Ring Road rehabilitation, Arawa and Boca Water and Sewage System restoration, Keita Wharf restoration, Southwest Road Bridges rehabilitation, and Radio Bougainville restoration. With the establishment of a Bougainville public service, the transfer of powers and functions from the national government can be completed. The autonomous Bougainville government and the national government has committed to a public education campaign which aims to improve capacity, public servants and all members of the National and Bougainville Assembly. The national government is now serious to ensure that Bougainville gains full autonomy. Considerations will be taken into account whether weapons have been disposed of in accordance with the agreement and whether the Bougainville government is being conducted in accordance with internationally accepted standards of good governance. Prime Minister Peter O'Neill has thanked Bougainvilleans for the great hospitality and is assured to make another visit later this year.
You're watching Tok Piksa. Arawa town in the Keita district was once Bougainville's mining capital, a town that would have become an icon of Papua New Guinea because of the giant Panguna mine that was operated by Bougainville Copper Limited. But all this collapsed because of a long-standing dispute between the mine operators and local landowners. This gave birth to the Bougainville crisis, for many a nightmare that turned into war and destruction. Fabian Hakalitz brings us back to Arawa's glory days before the crisis and life after it.
Many of us still wonder how Arawa would look like today. Well, for commuters and frequent travelers to the former mining township, this is an answered question. But a question mark for those who once did set foot here in Arawa. Well, it's safe to say Bougainville is peaceful, no more crisis, everything back to normalcy. Once upon a time, there was a thriving coastal town on the east coast of the island of Bougainville known as Arawa, built on an old coconut plantation. The town stretched all the way to the port of Keita. We give you a flashback to some developments that took place in Arawa. It was capital of the then North Solomons province, in the shadow of the great Crown Prince mountain range and township of the world's largest open-cut mine, Panguna or Bougainville Copper Mine, a Canberra model town some minutes drive from the closed Arapa International Airport, including Loloho and Keita Wharf. Arawa was home to many who watched the mine industry grow. It had banks, schools, large shopping centers, and all those that even passed the requirement of becoming a city. It was an amazing place, a happening spot for all those who lived there. But one day it all changed. But that's a story that only the survivors know. Arawa is the transiting site for CY and Wayne commuters of South Bougainville. Pok Island is where the first Marist missionaries arrived in 1901, bringing with them the good news. Fathers Eugenius Anglet and Peter Mayer celebrated the first Holy Mass. State-owned entities like Dan Elcom, now PNG Power, generated millions of kina within its vicinity in good days. Also the town where part of the first PNG movie, Husati Aswa, Tukana, by Albert Toro and the late William Takaku, was filmed. During the Bougainville crisis, many buildings were burned down by fighting factions and individuals, causing a total destruction to the mining capital. Let us look at the Arawa today. During the Bougainville restoration period beginning in 1993, services were restored. Services have improved over the last 10 years after the rampage caused by the Bougainville crisis. Boom in economic activities and infrastructure development has been experienced. Many of the buildings still remain. The White House, second to that of Washington, D.C. in the United States, and all those others. Many locals have ventured into business activities. New facilities like Bank South Pacific branch has helped to ease the cost of traveling to Boca to do banking. I met up with these two businessmen, Dixon Suparu and Stephen Ipyung, who said that doing business in Arawa is worthy. Ipyung owns the largest supermarket in Arawa town that serves those in the surrounding areas. We spoke to some Bougainvilleans who said before services were crippled, but today it's a new dimension, linked with the people, easy and accessible. The growth of education institutions in Arawa has attracted many youths to have a space. Gina and Remy Willimon is a teacher by profession and says education has opened doors to the public. The Arawa main town market is where press produce is sold. It attracts both local and international sellers, like our close neighbors, the Solomon Islands. Lucy Travets is the Keita District Executive Manager. Plans already in place for the scope and redevelopment of Arawa and Keita. All this will be achieved through collaborative teamwork exercise.
Our core business now, in fact in all sectors, is to strengthen or institutional strengthening.
Taking ownership of assets and properties is a concern, and if other investors are to set up businesses in the autonomous region, law and order must take its course. Plans to move the headquarters back to Arawa is not yet finalized, something that comes under the scrutiny of the autonomous Bougainville government. The Prime Minister's goodwill visit to Bougainville was vital in the restoration and development process. Several high-impact projects will be implemented this year as part of the national government's commitment to improve infrastructures with goods and services delivery.
Now, I am at the Arapa International Airport, one of the well-established airports before the Bougainville crisis. As I could recall in one of the books, the aircraft belonging to Queen Elizabeth II landed right here at Arapa. Here with me is Wendy Maloney, who will give us a flashback about the airport itself.
My childhood of growing up in Arawa and on Bougainville was very pleasant. Having born and grew up in most of my life and coming back to Bougainville, to Arapa, especially and landing here, was always very warm, always very welcoming. Being one of the best airports in the country as an international airport as well, and having to fly over islands and land beside the ocean or the sea was a very thrilling feeling for a child coming home. I'm very privileged to have grown up in Arawa as well, and have visited this airport so many times. And after 23 years coming back here and seeing it in the state it is now, it is heartbreaking, and it does bring back a lot of memories, not just the airport but the township of Kieta and Arawa and Panguna as well.
Aropa Airport is part of the restoration and redevelopment program that the national government has marked as a high-impact project this year. State-owned entities are first sent on a mission to strengthen its services. The Prime Minister said it's costly and time-consuming traveling through the highway. With the airport, it will improve transport infrastructure, networks, and boost the economy.
Opportunity must come up where you must symbolos lo Aropa na give him service kam lo line lo yumi. Lo display here. Me committee mo sem any must come na pudan lo Arawa na Aropa airport. That's lo here.
Public Enterprises and State Investments Minister Ben Micah, in an exclusive interview with MTV, said Aropa is conducive with New Guinea Dash 8 flights to resume soon. A temporary terminal and fencing will be built soon to cater for this exercise. Mr. Micah said Aropa would regain its tag as an international port with connection flights to the Solomon Islands. Recently, the Arawa Post Office opened 25 years after the crisis. Speeches all brought out the message of hope for Bougainvilleans. PNG Power, Telecom PNG and Post PNG have resumed the provision of these services there.
Arawa main center of Mipla lo Bougainville na by makimo isi longo local man meritulo kokam lo highway.
Mipla ko naman Mipla hamas. Es combaten public servants o dalilig man no Bougainville would like to give regular service now on the region.
Motor vehicle insurance and Air Niugini are next.
And we've actually, for New Guinea, we've opened an office within the post office in Arawa. And that office, by this coming week, will be fully functional. It will have a staff of 2 initially, and hopefully we can build on that from there on.
Long before the good glory days of Arawa has gone, but the memories will still remain in the hearts of many.
You're watching Tok Piksa. Major plans are now underway to rebuild the Arawa General Hospital to become Bougainville's referral-based health facility. The hospital, once known for being Papua New Guinea's best established, was decimated during the Bougainville crisis. But now a way forward for its rebuilding exercise has begun. First, a resident doctor has been posted to Arawa, and more recently, the resumption of surgical operations. All these developments are giving people hope that more positives will come.
Hello and welcome to Tok Piksa. I'm Fabian Hakelitz from Arawa, former Bougainville's mining capital. Now I am standing on the pathway leading towards Arawa General Hospital's main operating theatre. In this Tok Piksa, we're going to give you an insight of before and after the Bougainville crisis with the available future plans to make this hospital regain its momentum as a referral base for the people of the autonomous region of Bougainville. Enjoy.
This is where the once well-established health facility of Papua New Guinea was. It was the then North Solomon's referral-based hospital, serving locals, national and expatriates at those long good old days. This is where the Arawa General Hospital was. It housed 7 wards and a well-established Red Cross blood bank. The hospital was burned down during the Bougainville crisis. A nursing college which trained professionals, some still serving the state today. At the peak of the Bougainville crisis, most infrastructures were destroyed and burned down. One of them is the Arawa General Hospital facilities, including the colleges, nursing, technical and BCL. The saddest part is that all left after the crisis what is skeletal remains that is visible adjacent to the mining town. The crisis has resulted on the struggles to rebuild the same infrastructures that were destroyed. It was a total cut-off from the health services. It resulted on the increased child and maternal deaths. Gynecologist Dr. Joe Veloci was one of the few remaining health workers who served in Arawa at the peak of the crisis. During the restoration period and after events of the ceasefire agreement, peace monitoring groups assisted to provide the necessary healthcare to the people in Central and South Bougainville. The existing facilities used was the nursing college lecture rooms and the dining hall that was converted to a mini operating theatre where several surgical procedures were performed. Hare Eravu is a former student of the Arawa Nursing College working as the dispenser of the health center. He says the nursing college was open to all, which produced some of the best nurses. This is where the students' accommodation area also burned down during the crisis. Last year, a decision was made by the authorities, supported by the World Health Organization, for a doctor to be stationed at Arawa. Appointed was Dr. Veloci to speed up the transitional processes from a health center to a hospital. One of the reasons behind the move was to decrease the high maternal rates. Increased referral cases of pregnancy complications on women from Central and South Bougainville were recorded, with 28 maternal deaths per year. It was reduced to 6 since last year.
I think this will go further to helping the mothers. So I'm very pleased to have come down so that we can minimize complications faced by mothers during pregnancy.
Staffs are also pleased and happy with the doctor's presence. More patients can now do consultations, costless and saves time and money to travel to Buka to access the service. With more awareness being carried out in communities, this has helped to decrease the high statistics. On November last year, the first surgical operations resumed. Before filming the operation, permission was granted from the patients and authorities. 6 patients were up for the surgical procedures led by Dr. Veloci, including anesthetic Solomon Divina, Sister Elizabeth Nawa, and Sister Regina Mate. A tubal ligation operation performed by Dr. Joe Veloci. It's after the Bougainville crisis that this operation has been performed. Patients were all filled with smile and happiness after the operation, as some of them could now enjoy life.
Coming all the way to Arawa and setting up here and people accessing the service, I think this will go further.
Recently, a committee was formed to put forward the health center's plans and oversee its operations. During this transitional stage, Dr. Veloci says all monies must be managed locally for services to flow. At the moment, they are operating on paper, meaning payments are approved from the headquarters in Buka. Major plans are in place to achieve the vision from a health center back to a hospital that will become Bougainville's referral base. In order for this vision to be achieved, Dr. Veloci believes recruitment exercise and training nurses will be the first priority. This is to boost manpower. 3 donors have shown interest to help rebuild the once well-established health facility. Infrastructures include staff housing, nursing college, and the hospital itself.
It's now gone. There's nothing to see, in fact, now that it's all grass now. But we have a dream to get it up again and running as soon as we get hold of some money.
Talking about the facilities there, they was the best. Look, la housing, or been up medicine Arawa General Hospital before the crisis.
Before housing can be come up one for nice la housing, well later mama been Karen stop. Now to me like must get one kind of before being stopped.
At one time, Bougainville and the Panguna mine were responsible for the economic stability of the country. Today, Bougainville stands on the verge of changing PNG political history. The cries of the people of the autonomous region continue to be heard, and soon it will be their voices that will determine their political future. Until the next time we meet on Tok Piksa, good night.
Goodbye.